Are you starting?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hello, and welcome to the weekly voice chat of the Men Are Human Discord server. This week's topic, we're talking about young men and addiction to video games. Now, I want to make something clear. We are not blaming video games or saying that video games themselves are a problem. What we're saying is that the addiction to video games, and I'm going to post an article from a few years ago from the New York Post, is indicative of a growing problem. Why are young men becoming so dependent on video games? Or some young men, I should say. Is it because they're having problems in education? Is it because they're having problems in employment? Is it because they feel a hostility to the world? From the world? I would say those are some places worth looking into. Looking at the high young male unemployment rate, which is significantly larger than the female unemployment rate, and looking at the education gap, men are significantly less likely to graduate college. So that's kind of the topic now, and I'm going to open the floor.
Okay,
Yeah, so this is something. Go on then, Locke.
no, I was just gonna make an argument, but you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that this is something that has touched me personally. I know people who have fallen into computer games and made their entire lives about them, and I had trouble with them for a while. I was an avid gamer, but that's not a bad thing. What was a bad thing was, instead of working on my life, I would instead spend all of my time on games. So a lot of you don't know, I'm a novelist and a programmer. And instead of doing those things, I would instead game. I wouldn't write, I would game. So a lot of my time was eaten up by I wouldn't say I was addicted so much as I spent way too much time on these things. But I do know people who spent their entire lives gaming, people who are on benefits and like this is all they do. But they've basically given up on life, and I feel that they are selling themselves short. I'm not blaming them, I'm not attacking them. I'm saying that they are selling themselves short and that they have things that they can do in this world that are unique to them and that they are not pursuing, because instead of pursuing those things, they are instead looking at video games as a source of progress in their life. And so obtaining wins in computer games becomes an artificial win that they feel is like a real win in their life. This is something that I felt when I was gaming. It took me losing multiple saves and restarting to realise that there was nothing I could do to affect these other worlds that I was getting invested in. There's nothing tangible about them. They're just zeros and ones. And they are fun for an hour in the evening to play, to wind down, that sort of thing. But there are people who take them to extremes, and I do think that there are people who are letting their lives be dominated by them. And I know people that this is happening to, though I mean others are going to disagree and they are free to. I am happy to be contradicted. This is a debate after all as to whether young men are affected by this. But I do think that there are a lot of things in this world that are causing young men to seek this sort of refuge. And it is a refuge, it is escapism. And a little escapism is good, but too much shows that there's a problem in your life that you're really desperately trying to escape from. And instead of confronting the problem, you may have instead gone to try and escape it by whatever means. I mean, saying video games is probably misleading. People take refuge in a lot of things. TV, movies, books. These can all serve the same function. And the question is, what is too much? What is too much escapism? And I feel like the level of too much is when it starts to affect your day to day life. I mean, you could say smartphones as well. What smartphones are these little distraction devices in our pockets. And it's very, very easy to, instead of being pushing forward and working on improving yourself, earning money for yourself, putting something out there that's, you know, working on your life. Instead of doing that, it's very easy to get sucked into these little machines that can do everything and become completely obsessed with them.
And I think part of this, I think we can kind of go to the source of it because I don't think how much time you spend on games is the problem. I think it's the reason why you're in the games that's the problem, right? Because oftentimes, men, the reason why we're motivated to do a lot of things is because of our obligations, right? To ourselves and to the people that we love. And there's tangible results that are worth working for and fighting for in the real world, right? There's things that are worth defending and things that are worth putting in effort to gain, right? And to acquire. And that's why we're motivated to do those things, right? Because those things are beneficial, right? And we feel an obligation to them. But the thing is, the way we go through life, we seek control through like our given limits, if that makes any sense. Like they did a study in sociology with kids where they put boys and girls in a room, right, with a bunch of toys. And what they found was that the boys took over the whole room, and the women organized, or the girls, they organized the toys in circles around them, right? Men rule over given limits, whereas women like to rule through personal connection to things, which is why men go for like societal positions and jobs and focus more on their careers and dynasty and all of that stuff, and women focus more on family and the stuff in the home and that stuff. Obviously, this is a generalization, but it's not all of them, but overall, right? Um, and so because we kind of seek that like control, within given limits, if you set all of your given limits in a video game, then you have complete control all the time. And you can ensure the exact results that you want, right? Because it's a video game, it's a virtual world, and there's no consequences, right? And there's no effort. And you're not motivated to go out into the real world and do anything because, the real world hates you. And even if you do go out into the real world, it sucks. And what you get for doing it is subpar at best, right? So I think part of it is just that feminism has made life for men not rewarding, right? Because it's like you're no longer required. Like it shoves in our face that we're like unnecessary all the time. So it's like, well, if you don't need me, then I'm just going to ensure my own little perfect world. And so that's what they do. They retreat to their world and they control within their given limits there. And they find happiness in that because they have everything that they want. They can control all the variables. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to send a little message, a screenshot here. This is a counterpoint to my own point that I've been saving for this talk. And what it says here is that playing video games with their friends helped them a great deal. So this isn't a cut and dried thing. You can actually create community through computer games where you're having real experiences with other people, you're making friends, you're using it as a therapy thing. We probably should have started with this, to be honest. Probably should have started with computer games with therapy, and I hope we haven't lost anyone from the stream who's been listening in and thought, no, this is my therapy. Because we're not attacking that. We're attacking addiction, because you can take anything to extreme. Food is good. Food addiction is bad.
Right, and I agree, and I actually agree with that highly, with the idea of community, because I do game development right now. I'm working on a game. And the main thing that me and my friend who I'm developing it with that we've been focusing on is a strong community. And the reason why is because the reason why I got into game development was because me and him played a game together for years since we were kids. And what made us love that game and love gaming in general was the community. The community was what made it amazing because it was like a form of therapy. You know, it was a way to meet up with the guys and have fun and kind of get away from the world for a bit and build things and feel like you were in control, right? That control over given limits, right? So it's and receive recognition. You know what I mean? Like you get all of those things, right? That as a man make you feel like, okay, I'm doing the right thing, right? And that like dopamine rush. So it's I don't think that that's necessary. Like you said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But what I think is a problem is when you use that as a substitute for the real thing, right? You
Yeah,
have
it's
given limits
it's when it becomes a crutch.
right, exactly, because you have given limits in life, right? And I think in real life those things are much more important, you know. And oftentimes people get so focused on one thing and they kind of forget about the rest. You know, they focus on the easy part, and you can't just focus on the easy part, right? Because the hard part is oftentimes the most rewarding, right? And I've told people this about fitness as well, right? They're like, I love food, but I don't love exercise. Well, it's like, well, you're missing the most important part, though, right? It's like constantly filling up your car but never driving anywhere, right? It's the same concept, right? And it's the same thing with this, right? You're building those habits, right? You're developing that ability to follow through on actions, you know, to build community, right? To put in effort and achieve what you're to achieve your intentions and to achieve your actions, right? You decide you're going to do something in game, you're going to build something or you're going to accomplish something. And so you practice for like 50 hours, you put this time in, you read up in the wiki, all this stuff. Like they legitimately do good things, but then they don't apply those same principles in real life. Like, dude, it's the same thing, right? I remember I was playing with a friend and we were playing, right? And we did all this research, learning about all the mechanics, and we designed this like unbreakable iron farm. Makes like a ridiculous amount per hour. It was insane, right? It was all fit in one chunk. It was perfect. It was unbreakable, minimum lag, and all this stuff. And we were researching in the wiki, and we put like probably 3 weeks into just building this thing, right? And you know, later on when I was working on a project coding for the game, you know, and I was learning what's it called, GD script, which is for Godot, which is what I'm working in right now. When I was learning GD script, and I put a ton of hours into it, and I was reading up in like the you know, the notes from other devs and stuff on potential bugs and stuff like that. And he was asking me like, "How are you so disciplined?" And I'm like, "It's the same thing. We just did the same exact thing, right? We were just doing this. Minecraft is just an expression of life, right? Just like any other game, right? It's just goals that you're achieving to get a desired result, right? But you desire those same results in real life, and yeah, it's hard sometimes, but that's okay. You just got to push through it, right, and put in the effort, and you get what you want eventually. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes they just need to take those first steps and apply those same principles so that they can see the results in real life are not that hard to get. It just takes a little bit of effort. And once they do that, they'll start applying those same concepts, you know?
Yeah. The one game that I've ever played that felt like it was increasing my creativity instead of just taking up my time was Minecraft, which is very interesting. I mean, they're saying that Minecraft might actually be something that you could use in schools to teach kids about. I think it was coding they were talking about, but I don't know how Minecraft would really teach about coding because Redstone isn't really that much like coding. It's
I do remember
it's
some years
yeah.
back they had some cooperation with code.org, but that's all I remember. It was just block coding, just get kids into coding itself.
Yeah.
Like there's
I
a
mean,
game called Mindustry, and Mindustry has an internal language, right? There's an internal language in the game Mindustry that you can learn and use to program the robots that do various actions in game, whether it be automating tasks like carrying resources or whatever. And I've actually used this to teach how to learn languages, right? So I ran a program where I was teaching it was like a workshop basically on how to learn languages, not like how to learn any one specific thing like C++, but like how to absorb information quickly and really pick up these languages very fast, use clean code, all that stuff. And so I use that because it's fun, right? And people actually like playing games. whereas they don't like looking at VS Code or Vim or something like that for 30 hours at a time, right? But if I put it in a game format, it's like, okay, but this is the exact same thing. So once I can draw that parallel and use Mindustry or Minecraft or something like that and show them, okay, it's the same concept, it becomes much easier for them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Bohemso, did you want to say something? Your mic's on. No mic. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, it does seem like this is it's a more complex topic than people on both sides want to really admit. So, I mean, we did see somebody saying that gaming addiction doesn't exist. I think that's not true. But we see people saying that all video games are like instant VR crack and they're gonna get you hooked instantly. And no, I don't think that's true either. I mean, there are computer games, well, apps mostly, that are designed to be as addictive as possible, and they are basically digital drugs. But those apps mostly only work on a tiny, tiny number of like super obsessive players who spend like all of their money in those apps. Like they earn a dollar and they spend it in that app. And that is really something that we need to address. In fact, I think those apps should be banned simply because they're destroying the lives of very, very vulnerable people. And I feel like you can have in-app purchases, you can buy digital cards and things, but I do think they need to be price capped and amount capped and so on. And it can't be like gambling.
Well, at least in the U.S., a gambling app would be prohibited by law anyway. But I often thought, how much money could you make if you imagine like a very simple game on your cell phone, something like a competitive two-player game, something like Pong, and you connect your credit card to it, and the winner wins $1, or the winner wins 25 cents, or whatever bet. And I got really excited about that, and then I realized, no, that would be illegal.
Yeah,
but it's interesting
that
the relationship between gambling addiction and gaming addiction. I could definitely see becoming a problem.
there very much is a crossover, and those games that have been fronting all those boxes full of skins and things, they are basically doing that. They're trying to make it the same thing, but thankfully they seem to be losing. There seems to be that like people are acknowledging that this is a kind of gambling, and players are getting very wise to the fact that they're mostly getting useless crap out of these boxes that they don't want. And I think that people are steering away from these games now. But I do also think that the hyper addictive players who have these personalities that make them want to like gamble and stuff like that is, you know, we need to be very aware of these people, because these people could leave, you know, in a society without these things, they would still find things to be addicted by, but they would likely be less destructive things if we could just limit the like number of things that are like going to really hurt them. But at the same time, we need to realize that things like Facebook and Twitter can be super addictive. I mean, I've caught myself working and like I've typed one thing and then I'm like, oh, time to check Twitter. Wait a second, no, it's not. And I've taken to locking my phone up, giving it to my partner, like not going out with it sometimes, burying it in my bag, like just getting away from it. There's also this really good app called, what was it? Minimalist Phone. You can get it on the Android store for free, and it basically make takes away all the user friendliness of launching an app. So instead of launching an app straight off the home screen, you have to go into the minimalist phone app, scroll down a big long list of useless apps until you find the one you want. And a lot of people rate it very highly.
It's very interesting. I don't have any trouble staying away from my phone. People get upset with me because I'm not keeping in touch with texts and emails and all these different ways of communicating. So I find it too easy to leave my phone at home. I don't like the thing. This is all very interesting stuff. I don't really know that much about gaming addiction. I know that some few of the games are masterpieces. I think Half-Life is just a brilliant thing. It's like a great novel that you get to live out. I don't know much beyond that, except that there are at least some of these video games that are quite brilliant. Most, of course, are going to be junk. As far as the gender political aspect of all this, it seems reasonable that as the world keeps curtailing the masculine and uh, sort of denigrating the masculine and less, boys are able to act out on their masculine, even to the extent of getting recess. I mean, there's dodgeball's gone. All these sort of things that were male. Even the reading material is increasingly feminized, relationship oriented rather than action oriented. What heroes there are female. So I mean, it just makes sense on an intuitive level that boys would leave super feminized environment like school and get lost in a masculine world, even if it's just a virtual world, somewhere where it's just male. It's action, it's adventure, it's heroism, it's risk taking, it's all these masculine archetypes within this game world that will maybe seem more attractive than the real world.
As well, especially if you look at a lot of the gaming genres that are popular, PvP games.
Sorry, what are you saying? You're very garbled.
So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I was saying I definitely agree, especially if you look at the major demographics. I think the largest demographics are like first-person shooters and battle royale games, and if you look at like the demographics of those games, like it's largely male, right? And I mean, in some of those communities, like in CS:GO, like if there's a girl in chat, like everyone will ban them. Like it's almost ridiculous, but I get it. They don't have anywhere else to go, and so it's like that's their space. And it's kind of what you were saying. People attack the masculine, people attack all those things, and so they find this place where you can be masculine, where you can do those masculine things, where you can do what you want, and no one's going to call you sexist or misogynist or any of that stuff just for being a guy.
Yes, and it makes sense that they would reject girls, women, feminine. They know from experience that when females enter something, they soon take it over. Soon it becomes politically correct. Pretty soon you're walking on eggshells. Pretty soon everything has to be nice and polite. And so, yeah, it would kind of make sense that they say girls aren't welcome here.
Oh yeah, I remember that happened with Clash of Clans. At first Clash of Clans, like it was super vulgar and stuff like that, and like in global chat, people would say a lot of like really weird stuff, but like none of the guys cared because it's like it's whatever, and people are just doing what they're doing. But when girls started joining the game, there was a lot of like mass reporting and that kind of stuff, and it ended up getting global chat removed, which is one of the things that actually kind of tanked the game because a lot of people were angry about that. So
Well, that's what happens. You go work, you go broke. It's but yeah, that's very interesting that that happens. I think it's completely different expectations of a space. Women and girls tend to want spaces that are more clean and homely and safe and stuff like that. Whereas guys like the rough and tumble, they like the swearing, they like all of it. It makes it for camaraderie, and like guys will encourage that kind of thing, and it will be all friendly and stuff, even though it sounds very rough from the outside.
oh, yeah, I agree. Again, if you look at the chat in most games, like they're saying borderline, extremist stuff like all the time, and none of the guys care because, I mean, a lot of it's just like harmless joking. Like no one cares. No one's taking it seriously. It's just people being stupid just because they can, and I don't know. It's not necessarily what I do, but I can understand it, and me personally, I'm big into a lot of different PvP games, and it's an interesting community, and I don't know, it's really laid back. And I think part of it is just kind of like you were saying before, like it's a release. Everything's so tense all the time everywhere else. All this like strict moderation, all this stuff. It's like it's one of the reasons why when I went to Rhetoric, it's like that's where all the guys were. Because in Rhetoric you can say whatever you want and no one cares. So people just do what they want. They kind of just troll, they post memes, they say dumb stuff, they say intelligent stuff. They just do their thing. They can just beat themselves and not have people attack them for being themselves. Right, and I've said this before. It's one of the reasons why people always ask, "Oh, why do people like American Psycho?" Right, like Patrick Bateman. Like, oh, he's a serial killer. He's not a good role model. Blah blah blah. The reason why people like him is because in a world that hates him, he just owns it. He's like, well, screw them, because I'm me, and no one's gonna tell me to be anything else. And that relates to a lot of people, especially boys, because everyone's telling them to be something else. Everyone's telling them that their nature is wrong. Right. So it relates to a lot of people.
That's kind of ironic because it's a feminist film.
Exactly. And I've said that before too. The book was written by a homosexual man, and then the film was made by a feminist. So.
Yeah, I don't think the homosexual part matters. It's the latter part, the feminist part, that does matter. But the entire thing's about how men are evil and they become powerful. They lose all sense of morality and they just start killing women randomly. And it's all very gynocentric, and at least that's my understanding of it. I may be misrepresenting it, but it's like I do have the film. I just haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't saying like gay because that was relevant. I'm just saying like it's interesting to see who was like behind the film and who resonates with it. Right? It's usually like the opposite of the demographic that produced the film. So, which is really interesting to see because they unknowingly made a character that was relatable to people. It's the same thing with the Joker, right? It's one of the my goodness, can't speak. One of the reasons why people resonate with the Joker so much, right? Because the Joker is menacing. And why is he menacing? Because he doesn't care. In a world where everyone hates him, he just owns it. Right? He's like, I'm going to be me. That's it. Right? And he's hurt to the point where nothing else matters. Right? So it's really interesting to see the reasons why these stories are so compelling. Why these games are so engaging. It's because people don't feel welcome in society. And when they see someone who's ostracized like they are, they relate.
Mm. Yeah, it is interesting. There's a lot of weird people that mainstream people seem to really relate to. It's like, why is they're popular, you know.
Like I said, the people who are ostracized are revered because most people are ostracized, right? Especially men and boys. They don't feel like they fit in anywhere. So when they see someone who doesn't fit in, just like they do, and they're cool anyway. Like they're presented in a cool light. They're the main character. That's what they want. You know?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I might steal that for my work. But yeah. So moving on from what we're talking about, does anyone else have any examples of addiction, perhaps stories about addiction that they'd like to share? It doesn't have to be personal, and I'm not pressuring anyone if anyone's worried about that.
Can we give a why behind the addiction? About why
Go
someone
on.
be addicted? I don't know. I'm just trying to contribute.
Oh, you're prompting me, not.
No, I'm asking. I'm asking if I can just give a why someone would get addicted to the video games.
Oh, go on.
To put it simply, it's just because playing video games is just better than anything else in their lives, even if they have a relatively good life. I mean, having responsibility can suck. I know that sometimes I just rather stay at home playing video games all day than doing stuff. Rather do that than work, but you just gotta take the responsibility, and sometimes they just don't take the responsibility, they just get addicted. That's all I have to say about that.
Well,
Mm,
see, that's the thing. I think oftentimes we conflate something being easier with it being better, right? And oftentimes the things that are the hardest are the things that we actually value, right? I forgot what it's called, but it's an effect that they found in psychology studies, right? Where if you put money on something or if you put like effort into something, you value it much more, right?
Except that I think I can give. Oh, sorry, Aaron.
No,
Go.
that was basically what I was going to say. Just like you value things that you put effort into, and also things in the real world are more tangible and they're more rewarding because they're the actual thing. And there is a difference when you've actually achieved things in the real world and have tangible results in life, than when you're doing things in games, etc. Learning origami, for me, and art and being able to make various things. I mean, I kind of love everything. I have a lot of hobbies, but especially with art and things like that, I mean, I made a what's it, fresco of the part of the Sistine Chapel where God is touching Adam. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a really famous painting, but I mean, when I was able to do it in a way that was satisfactory to me,
I have actually been to the Sistine Chapel, and I have seen that in person. It's incredible.
yeah, it's
me too.
beautiful. Yeah, and so I made that part of the fresco, and I mean, it was so satisfying to have something that I could physically hold and look at in the real world and sell to people. That was like, yeah, I don't know. It was just a personal development that was tangible in the real world. I as a person had developed to a level where I could create things that was on an entirely different level than what most people could create. And it's not to say that like I'm better than anyone, but I've developed a skill beyond what is average, right? And reaching that level of achievement, it's something that I can't really describe. And it's not even about competition. It's about personally reaching your best and breaking through plateaus for yourself, right? Um, and when you've done that in a way that's, I don't want to keep using the word tangible, but I can't think of another word to describe it. Like when it's an actual real
Mm,
thing, it's entirely different. Like if you look at relationships and stuff that you have with people in game, like don't get me wrong, I love in-game communities, right? Like I said, I'm building my game around having a strong community. But I mean, meeting my girlfriend and developing that relationship and having an actually healthy physical relationship with someone in real life is the most rewarding thing I've probably ever done in the entirety of my existence, right? And it's brought me to another level as a person, and it's shown me another level of understanding, intellectually speaking and emotionally speaking. So, there's definitely a big difference, and I think most people just don't realize that because they never get to that point. Society makes it so hard to do the most basic things, and even when you do it, it punishes you for it, or it doesn't even care. So the main motivator for why we do things as men has been taken away.
I think that part of the reason the addiction is so easy to slip into is because when we invest in things, or at least when we feel like we've invested in things, we feel like there are going to be results, and there have to be results. So when somebody pours a lot of money into like one of these mobile apps that you know sucks up your money,
I don't.
like one of these gaming apps or gambling apps or something like that, they feel like they're making an investment in this. Like that's really, I mean, the gambler's fallacy isn't just like the real gambler's fallacy is you're thinking you're investing your money in something that's going to automatically pay out because the system sort of acknowledges you or something, and then you feel like it's going to give you, your big payout because you've been loyal to this system, this game.
Thing
But
with
in actual fact, the game is designed to just suck up your money.
well, and the thing is too, like there's a way to, because here's the thing. So gambler's fallacy, like the technical definition, right, is thinking that what has happened has any bearing on what will happen, right? Thinking that statistics are consistent or invariable, which is not the case.
Oh
right?
yeah, I know.
No. I know. I'm just saying, like, comparing that definition with what you're talking about. I don't think you're wrong, but I think what you're talking about is more so, what's it called? It's sunk cost fallacy, right? It's like slightly different
Yeah.
because you're putting in your effort and you think, oh well, I put my money in, so I just gotta wait. It's gonna get better, but like, it isn't though, because like the system's built in a way that is designed to take advantage of you. Now, there's ways to rig the system in return, um, like playing with the house's money and all that stuff, but the thing is, people also just lack understanding of what actually makes something an investment. If you have a positive expected EV, it's an investment. If you have a negative expected EV, it's gambling, right? So, sorry, what?
Oh, you can finish your statement. I was going to say some stuff.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so, yeah, I think sometimes, I don't think it's that people are investing. I think one of the things is that, kind of what I was talking about before, I don't think it's so much that they feel like they're investing, because they put in effort to get that psychological reward, which they do indeed get, right? And if you get that reward and that's what you're looking for, I actually don't think that that's a bad thing. But I think the main problem is that, again, people don't have the real tangible thing, and so they're not motivated to do anything other than get the fake thing. And I also think that in a lot of cases, not only are they not motivated to get the real thing, oftentimes they view getting the real thing in a bad light. Like if you look at the modern dating market, like what most men say about like women and dating now, like they view it as a scam. It's not even that like, oh, games are just kind of more fun and like why bother? Like no, like dating is like legitimately a scam. A lot of guys feel like that. And part of that is just psychological reactance. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but basically it's the idea that something, if it's not your decision, like people don't like their agency being taken away, right? They did a study where they had 3 groups of college students, right? And they had them pick on a list of things what their favorite thing was, what the thing that they would most want was, right? What the second best thing was, and what the third best thing was, right? And then they told these 3 groups, they told one group, you're going to get the thing, right, that you've picked as your favorite. They told another group that you're going to get the thing just randomly, right? And then they told the last group you're going to get the thing that you pick. Now, what's interesting is after this, they just gave all 3 groups something randomly. What's funny is the group that was the most angry was actually the group who was told that they would be able to choose. even when they were given what they picked as their most favorable item. The reason why is because it's not because they didn't get what they wanted. It's because their agency was taken away. They were told they would be able to choose, and they weren't, right? So we really like to be able to maintain our agency. And a lot of times in the dating market, in business, and a lot of these things, the modern man is being scammed, right? We're being conned and manipulated into like serving a society that doesn't even really care about us. We're just seen as like, a worker. So, and I think that bothers a lot of guys. And so they seek to distance themselves from that system, if that makes any sense.
I think it makes
Yeah,
total
like
another. Whoops.
well, I follow up on that. Yeah, I just say, yeah, you make some great points. We can judge these boys behind their computers and say, get out and get a life. But much of the motivation to go out and get a life has been lost. If boys don't really have ambition around, I don't know, getting married, being providers, what's the point? Why make a lot of money or strive to make a lot of money when you really can't compete with the women out there? They're graduating from college in vastly larger numbers and graduate school as well, and never married women way out earn their male counterparts. It just seems there's less motivation for men to their it's like their role is pretty much is diminished to such a point that it's many will just not see the point of getting out from behind their computer and tackling the real world.
it doesn't
and
help
I think
that they're expected to pay for the dates, and the women expect them to pay a lot of the time. And like 40% of women admit that they have used men as a free meal,
Sure.
a free night
I
out.
think another thing too is we're at such a point where politics are and society is concerned right now and things where a lot of people are feeling hopeless. One of the articles I brought up was mental health, and right now they're saying it's a mental health crisis, and it's a mental health crisis because people are feeling completely hopeless. They don't know what to do. And I think the hard thing when it comes to being human beings, we have short-term thought and we have long-term thought. And we think long-term in planning, but as time has sort of gone by and we've gone more into the modern era, we are sort of not being reprogrammed, but we're switching to shorter term thinking. And I think that's also where this goes in. By the way, I sort of know the study you're talking about. There's another study done similarly, Logica, where they did MRIs on people and they had one game that was rigged, and then the second time, half the people did a game that was rigged and the other half didn't. I'll put the book in here that I found that out about, and I'll see if I can find the study later. But it was finding that people did like making their own decisions, even without knowing the game was rigged, because they weren't told the game was rigged till after they played it. Somehow their mind was able to tell it was rigged. And so when you feel like life is hopeless and rigged against you because of so many different factors, whether it's dating, whether it's the political world, whether it's your job, you're looking for something that basically, as I said, is sort of like an escape. You're going somewhere that gives you maybe this short-term release, which isn't so healthy because you should be thinking to a certain extent long-term, but it feels sort of long-term in a way as well, because if you do it enough times in the short term and you keep repeating doing it, it feels like something more.
Stay in the feedback loop. You can stay in the feedback loop.
Yeah, you can stay in the feedback loop. It builds a sense of accomplishment, even though it's not something real.
It renews your control and your agency.
Yeah.
Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have. So, going back to the whole real world is more meaningful doing stuff than that. I can say that's true from personal experience. I get tired because I get tired of playing video games faster than I get tired of working, and sometimes my job just absolutely sucks. But I feel like I'm actually doing something. Commenting on this whole hopelessness situation, yeah, especially in politics. I mean, at this point, I just see everything as the same, and always has been the same. There's something else I was gonna say, but I can't remember it. But, that's basically my thoughts on that. Sorry about that.
All right, I'm just wondering if we've eaten through this topic. If everyone's satisfied with it yet, we could go to free talk mode and.
I actually want to bring up one little story on this.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, Mom. This is taking up time. So I wouldn't say I'm an avid gamer. I did used to game a lot more. I haven't in the last couple of years because real life and school. But I have a friend who I care about a lot. We started from like this whole game community, and much like Logica explained, we were very like don't care. We'd say a lot of things. We had some very interesting nicknames. You know, we just said a lot of borderline stuff, but it was all games and fun, and it was joking around. And so we had that space that he explained to do that. And that was really good for our friends. And especially since there were many people in our group that socially it was really hard for them at school to make friends. You know, they may not have been the most physically attractive, so it was on a date. They're a bit socially awkward. So I will admit at times that, and I'd have to really look at studies at this, that maybe there's sort of a way that things are hitting people socially when playing video games. I guess the best way I can word this is they went to video games because it was hard for them because they were socially, you know, a little weird, I guess is to put it. They weren't used to talking to a lot of people. They weren't used to making friends. They struggled in the social department. But I think also on the other hand, playing video games as often as they did, because they would play almost every night until about 1 in the morning. Again, this was a while ago. And I think that also made them a little socially unable. It didn't help them develop socially either. It helped them find friends, but those friends, some of them were in real life, like real people, and some of them weren't. And I think sometimes they forgot that there's certain ways you're supposed to act online versus in person, because as I said, we had nicknames, and this is where the story goes too. And I'm sorry for anyone who's underneath the age of 18, because you're about to hear some language. But we would come up with nicknames like "Well, bitch," "Cocaine whore," stuff like that. It was really terrible. And we were in the hallway one day, and one of the friends from game group, we went to school together, and we were passing each other in the hallway, and he called my nickname out loud. I don't think anyone wants to guess what my nickname was. It was actually really, really bad. And I went through like 6 of them. I had 6 different nicknames. We changed them like every couple of months. And he yelled it out loud in the hallway. And the problem was I was talking to my teacher. And he said it out loud. And word bitch was in the nickname. You all will have to guess the rest of said nickname. Word bitch was in it. And this teacher freaked out, pulled him aside and said, "What'd you call her?" We then had to proceed to explain that he did not mean this in any form of harassment or misogyny or anything, that this was just a joke. And he let him slide. So, but it was that moment that sort of made me realize that maybe video games, like a double-sided sword. On one hand, they're good. because they provide an escape and they did give him more friends. But the problem is as well, they sort of made him forget what's socially responsible to say in the real world at certain times.
Yeah, I lost a lot of social skills purely because I became, well, it was mostly bullying, let's be honest here, but when I was in secondary school, I would read all the time instead of interacting with people. So I had literally no friends throughout the whole of secondary school. It's kind of painful to admit, but if I had been forced to not read, I know I wouldn't have interacted with anyone anyway. So reading was my refuge. But I mean, there is a part of me that wonders if somebody else falling into that might have used it as a way to not interact with people rather than anything else. But this is just me rambling. To be honest, I don't know the answers. Anyway, Dark, if you could maybe take us out, unless anyone else has anything else to say.
I remember what I was going to say. It was never ever buy anything on mobile games. You will end up deleting that app in 2 months anyway. You're going to waste $20, so don't do it. That's all I got to say about that. Sorry about that.
That is sage advice, actually. I've never bought anything. Well, I've used on one of my old phones. I bought a few apps to simply because there were no free apps at all. It's just game apps. Like just buy them and then you get them forever. But it turns out forever on mobile phones is maybe a couple of years. Because then you change phones and the apps aren't compatible with the new phone. But anyway, unless
really, sorry, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I was kind of like I'm running some errands in the background here, so kind of had to leave. I don't know if someone already covered this, but Dark was talking about a lot of men don't have the drive to do this stuff because they don't really have any way to like understand these like social they don't really understand like social situations and things like that, and games don't really help them with that. So me personally, growing up, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I kind of spent all my times in books, and it was kind of what you were talking. I don't know if it was necessarily an addiction, but it was just easier for me than understanding people because I didn't really have anyone to teach me, because I had a single mother and then basically no one because I was an orphan. So I basically just kind of retreated to books because I didn't have anyone to teach me things, and I learned later on in life because eventually those books became Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and As Man Thinketh by James Allen. But in the beginning, I just read a lot of novels and stuff because I didn't feel like I had a story, so I just went and lived in other people's stories, and I think a lot of people do the same thing with games. And the point I'm trying to make is that I think one of the main problems is that there's a lack of education for how to be a man in the first place. And that's one of the major problems with what's going on because, nobody's teaching this generation of boys and to be men, right? And I believe the quote goes, if our boys aren't taught, our men won't know, right? So there needs to be more instruction. And I'm actually starting a Discord server for that very thing, teaching philosophy and, soft skills like writing and literacy and communication and things like that, because a lot of boys just don't learn that stuff, right? And I think it's important that somebody provide that for the ones who maybe don't get it in home.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there might be room for a game that teaches boys to be men.
I wonder if there's a way to incorporate that in my game.
Yeah. I mean,
the real question, though, is the different depictions of what men are and how to deal with things. People differ very much individually.
Right,
I think that's why you need it.
Sorry, go ahead.
See, this is why I think it needs to be open-ended. it needs to, like, there needs to be a range of masculine archetypes in the game, and there needs to be it needs to be more focused on teaching the skills rather than anything else. So I'm thinking that making this a survival game or giving it survival mechanics at least, would definitely help.
Yeah, it's already actually in the works. That's already kind of a part of it. I mean, I could tell you more about it, but one thing I just want to say though is that that's one of the reasons why I always tell boys and try and teach boys about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and all that stuff, because a lot of people think, oh, that's like the tough guy ideology, but no, like if you actually read Stoic literature, if you read Meditations and all of those works, it wasn't telling you how to be a man necessarily. It was telling you how to think. It was telling you the importance of virtue. It was telling you, not to, as Marcus Aurelius put it, not to deny your nature, right? And it's a lot of things that seem like common sense, but a lot of boys just aren't taught, right? And learning mental fortitude and those things, I think those things are universal. And I think that it should be more so a focus on universal principles than necessarily some archetype of what a man should be, because I think you can find those things yourself. You can find your own style and your own brand, of what your ideology, should be, because ideology is personal. The ideas and values you hold are held by you and they're determined by you. But I think the things that make you a man are universal principles. The same way that makes us same way that what makes us human are universal principles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think unless somebody else has something to say, I think Dark should probably take us out. But this will be going into free talk mode, and everyone will be able to go free for all. Although nobody giving Dark inventive nicknames is actually, yeah, that's encouraged. Go on. But yeah.
Why?
Because we love you, and thus we must treat you like we hate you.
All right, can I bring up the topic for free talk?
Okay,
I'll take us
go
out
on.
right now then.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
Well, other than Ma being so loving, thank you all for coming to this week's Saturday chat. We have the Saturday chat every week at 1 p.m. Central. Well, today's 1:30, but 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK. We are the semi-official Discord of the Men's Rights subreddit. We love having you guys here every week. If you ever have a topic, know that you can message Ma, myself, or Blue, and we will see if we can get it on. And we'll see you all next week.
Okay, thanks.